Fantastic Four: First Steps is a better movie than Avengers Endgame. There, I said it. You heard me correctly. I reserve the right to change my mind, of course, but I'm coming off of the high, a week later, granted. Today is Thursday, July 31st, and I saw the movie a week ago on the 24th of July. But I did a non-spoiler review and then took some notes along the way, a little bit each day. And my feeling has not changed. I truly enjoyed Fantastic Four. Again, I think I'm just coming off the high of having just been absolutely, for lack of a better term, blown away by the visuals and the soundtrack and the chemistry amongst the cast. It was all fantastic. It's cliche now, I'm sure, with all these reviews, but it's true. So these are my thoughts on the Fantastic Four: First Steps. This is my spoiler review. If you have not seen this movie yet, come back to this video when you have, and then you can hear my thoughts on it. Or if you don't care, you could just keep watching. Now, I will say my thoughts might be a little bit all over the place. I did write down notes, just little bullet points for myself to remember things I wanted to mention, because oddly enough, I have not memorized all the things that I'd like to say. So if you see my eyes darting this way, darting back to you, that's why, just so you know. I do follow other YouTubers on who do this sort of thing, who try to review movies, and I have chosen, of course, to not follow any of the reviews, not watch any of their reviews until I have done my own, because I don't want their thoughts to cloud my thoughts. So I wanted to express that to you first. And if my thoughts seem a little bit all over the place and non-linear, it probably will be to some degree. But I am going to discuss, just to give you a few bullet points real quick, the visuals, the score, musical score, my favorite scene for each of the primary characters, a few random thoughts, and then a few small gripes about things, I wish they would have done more of or a little bit better. So we'll start with the visuals. Yes, and again, forgive me, it's probably a little sacrilegious to the Church of Marvel fandom, but yeah, I did say I think this is better than Endgame. Maybe because I've seen Endgame a gazillion times by this point. Just wanted something new. But I really, truly love this movie. The visuals are the first thing that struck me, and that awe of this movie just lasted from start to finish. This is quite possibly one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. So well done, Matt Shakman, and everybody behind the scenes responsible for cinematography and special effects. Everything was just wonderful, really, really good. For instance, if I were to get more specific and talk about the Fantastic Four themselves and the visuals related to their powers. I thought Johnny's fire, Johnny Storm, he has the power to, he's the Human Torch. He shoots fire, absorbs fire. He kind of looked like a full-body flickering fireplace, while also somewhat translucent. He had not been depicted that way in previous incarnations of Johnny Storm in the other Fantastic Four movies. Sue's powers, which I thought were the most impressive visually, of course. I found it sort of a cross between a prism, with light refracting through it, and a gigantic soap bubble, because that's kind of what it looked like when she's creating her force fields. And I'm not saying that it's like diminished, like, oh, soap bubble, but a really big, powerful force field kind of soap bubble. Really, really good stuff. And then I really liked the texture on Ben's rocky skin. It was sort of like a parched earth that you might find in a dry lake bed. Yet his facial expressions really come through, and especially I love the contrast with his sort of adobe-like skin, that sort of beige-colored contrasted with the blue of his eyes. I think his eyes were blue, at least as I recall they were. And I think also, if I'm recalling correctly, blue and orange, or variations of blue and orange, are opposites on the color wheel. So that was a smart visual, I think, even though it's probably already depicted like that in the comics. And then Reed's elasticity powers. I really liked how they had sort of this undulating, natural recoil quality to them. When they show, the montage of the Fantastic Four's exploits at the beginning of the film, which saves Marvel from having to, giving them an origin story, which we've seen already. I'm getting all choked up about this. And, just the way he looks stretchy when he's about to land, and then he does land, and he's back to normal. So I liked that elastic coil and uncoil and recoil, paired with that sort of undulating quality that you see sometimes. This, as I mentioned, is one of the most beautiful movies I've seen, one of the most cinematographically beautiful movies I've seen. I've seen a lot of movies, and I really enjoyed, as I'm sure a lot of people did, the retro 1960s aesthetic that this gives us, reminiscent of the Jetsons. Speaking of the Jetsons, just like Rosie the robot in the Jetsons cartoon, I thought Herbie the robot was sort of almost like a Fantastic Four version of Rosie. I don't know if the Jetsons came out first or the Fantastic Four cartoon came out first, because I know there was one Fantastic Four cartoon in the 60s. So I don't know, but it's pretty cool to see similar looking robots in different spaces like that. It also reminded me at certain times of Interstellar, which I know has been mentioned in other reviews that I've seen snippets of. There's particularly one shot, when the rocket's shooting up into space, and you get like a side view of it that is reminiscent of one scene in Interstellar in particular. And then something that I found sort of related to 2001: A Space Odyssey is the depiction of, spoiler alert, by the way, this is a spoiler review, but it's also a mini spoiler here for the ending of 2001: A Space Odyssey. By the way, that movie's been out 56 years, so if you haven't seen it by now, that's your fault. But at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, the character Dave Bowman, who defeated the evil HAL 3000, I think, computer. At the very end of the movie, he becomes the Star Child. And, basically you'd see him as like a gigantic fetus floating around in space, like he just finished that life and now he's starting a new one. And that translucence of that moment very much reminded me of when Sue was in space, imminently giving birth to Franklin Richards. And you could see, actually, you know what? I'm confusing my scenes. That's what happened when she showed Franklin in the womb, giving him womb service. Forgive my joke there. And she showed her womb to Reed. Seeing that Franklin was all hunkered down in there, having a good old time, waiting to be born. So I thought that was a really cool visual, both in 2001: Space Odyssey and in the Fantastic Four, and the aforementioned scene was probably at least partially an inspiration for the scene in Fantastic Four with Sue's translucent belly when she was pregnant. So I loved that use of her invisibility to show Franklin in the womb, not to mention the whole birth sequence in space. That was incredible. I don't know if anything is like that has been seen in a science fiction movie before, or a birth depicted that way, but that was really neat to see. Speaking of visuals, also that whole black hole sequence is one of the most breathtaking interpretations of space travel I have ever seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of science fiction shows and films, and of course Interstellar is probably the most famous and most recent movie that I think came out in 2014 that shows very clearly the depiction of a black hole and the event horizon and everything just kind of being sucked toward it. And it was a very similar thing, but Matt Shackman and all the visual people responsible for this really took it up a notch. And I mean, I don't know how to describe this because I just don't have a scientific background other than being jaw-droppingly gorgeous. That whole scene of seeing all the refraction of light and the reflection of light that's been vacuumed into this black hole, but then seeing the rocket move through and then the Silver Surfer move through, whose design is equally captivating. I mean, she's like a mirror, and at one point you can actually see Johnny Storm's face reflected in her. So when he says that she's a sexy space surfer, space alien, something like that, and he can, with his, I guess his character sort of loves himself to some degree. He said, "Hey, look at me reflected in you." So that was a really wonderful design. And then, of course, I also thought of Independence Day, at least for the scene where you see Galactus's ship arriving. You see the top of it, Tatu, I think is the name of the ship, sort of floating in at the top of the screen. I saw it in IMAX 3D, so that made it even more impressive, I think. Much like the alien ships arriving to Earth in an equally menacing way then, too. And another thing on the visuals, speaking of Galactus, when his eyes lit up, paired with the foreboding kind of large industrial engine warm-up sound that starts like boom, every time his eyes go on. I mean, that really made him into a formidable villain. And not to mention his voice, by the way. I mean, I first became aware of Ralph Ineson's voice. I first became aware of him as an actor, I think, in a couple of the final Harry Potter movies. But in terms of his voice, I became aware in the relatively recent BBC comedic drama Ludwig, in which he played the chief constable. And even in that show and in that role, you could tell, sort of like Barry White kind of quality, depth there. Taking it down like the Marianas Trench of lowest octaves you can think of. So that was impressive, paired with all the lights of his eyes and then the sound, again, the industrial sound, and then his voice. He was a perfect villain. I mean, Matt Shackman, whoever were the casting directors, these people really hit the nail on the head for this. All right, so next section. Speaking of the score, I thought Michael Giacchino's score is Oscar-worthy. It is superior. I haven't really encountered a movie soundtrack that I wanted to listen to from start to finish this much in a long time. It's that good. And I think the theme itself, which I believe debuted about a year ago at maybe Comic-Con or D23, one of those things, in terms of musical heft and giving you a sense of the power of the team, that's equal almost, or pretty much with the Avengers theme, I would say. I mean, you think of dun 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 compared with Fantastic Four, and by the way, I made another joke in my non-spoiler review, fantastic score, because it really is. I love it so much. I've listened to it so often since I saw the movie. If this movie doesn't at least get nominated in the awards season for best score, I think those best score nominee people in charge of that, there must be deaf, because they don't know what they're doing. But this is great. Granted, not everything that's going to be eligible has come out yet for the best score. But I love that theme, and my favorite track, possibly my favorite Marvel track overall, which is saying a lot, is Out to Launch. Get it? A little wordplay there. Right up there with Natalie Holt's Purpose is Glorious from the Loki Season 2 soundtrack. Just in terms of songs that really hit me viscerally, that give me chills every time I hear them, and that just give you a sense of wonder and awe of all that we are in this universe and multiverse. Another thing that I really like about that particular song, it's got such a dramatic build-up to the rocket launch. And it's just sort of hopeful and auspicious and makes you smile and feel good about things. So that I really liked, and which is why I like to listen to it so much. By the way, in terms of recent Marvel offerings, I really also loved the Thunderbolts theme. I probably said that in my review by Sun Lux. I thought that was a really good theme for what it was. Although I didn't like it quite as much as the Fantastic Four theme and the Out to Launch. So I'll say that. Let's see. I lost my place in my notes. Here we go. Also, speaking of the Loki soundtrack and Purpose is Glorious, that was by Natalie Holt, by the way. It would be this soundtrack lover's dream to have a collaboration between Michael Giacchino and Natalie Holt. If we could somehow bring those two together, Marvel, if by chance you ever see this video, I would love to see some kind of collaboration there, because I think, while the music is vastly different and they're vastly different projects, I think they could figure something out to come up with something really epic. And by the way, the tracks on the soundtrack to the Fantastic Four First Steps, very clever. Lots of wordplay. I mean, it's hysterical. Go check it out. It's not just Out to Launch, but there are other things. I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head, but they all made me chuckle when I saw them. All right, so then getting into my favorite scene for each of the primary characters. For Johnny Storm, it was not necessarily something where it's fire involved. I thought it was really cool when he proved to be sort of skilled in linguistics and researching linguistics and deciphering language, because Shalabal, the Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner, she speaks to him in some language that is not native to Earth, and then he has to figure that out somehow. And I really thought that was a great and clever differentiation between Joseph Quinn's version of that versus like Chris Evans's or Michael B. Jordan's versions, which, both of those were kind of portrayed as more reckless, I suppose. So while Joseph Quinn's Johnny Storm is still kind of reckless, but it shows, he has a little more thought to him too, which I think was a nice thing. And also I really liked how with his power, he can suck up fire, like when he was helping out the firefighters to put out the flames, and which is something that the X-Man Pyro did in Deadpool and Wolverine, when incidentally he pulled away Johnny Storm's fire, Chris Evans's Johnny Storm's fire in that movie. Yes, sorry. Another spoiler there for Deadpool, which has also been out for a year, by the way. Then let's see. Speaking of that moment where Johnny deciphers the language, sort of a Rosetta Stone moments, when he's in, I think it was in the Times Square in the movie, when the Silver Surfer is there too, she pretty much has an on-the-spot character arc where she goes from villainy to redemption, just like that, or at least on the road to it, which she does at the end when she helps to push Galactus into the portal to wherever he's going in the universe, somewhere far away from Earth. My favorite scene with Ben Grimm, the Thing, not what you might think. It wasn't one that was all muscly, but it's when he was in the kitchen with Herbie, excuse me. There's a Kirby and a Herbie in this movie, Vanessa Kirby and Herbie the robot. We did see that in the trailer, but it shows that he's really, quite literally, a softie under the hard exterior. And I liked how it was, basically don't judge a book by its cover. And it's sort of an homage to his character on The Bear, which I highly recommend you see too if you have not watched that. Then we got Reed's scene, which is also shared on the screen in terms of my favorite scene with him. I mean, I could pick a lot of scenes, but these are the ones that really stood out to me. Reed's, when he's nearly pulled apart by Galactus. I don't know if that shows that I have any kind of um, that I enjoy. I have some sort of Schadenfreudistic tendency here, like, oh yeah, look at him being pulled apart. But no, I just thought it was interesting because the tears in his body, as soon as I think both Johnny and Ben rescued him when they distracted Galactus, I thought that seeing how his tears in his body were just healing really quickly, it was almost like he was similar to Wolverine's healing factor. So maybe in this universe, does he have some degree of that, or is that just the part of his new power of being sort of the Elastic Man with a big brain, that he can heal as quickly as he's pulled apart? The elastic recoil works pretty well there. So I thought that was interesting. And then Sue's best scene, I thought, the one I enjoyed the most, was of course when she was maxing out her powers, when she was pushing Galactus through the portal, back into the expulsion portal, sending him to wherever he was going in the universe. And the theme that I got out of that was that hell hath no fury like a mother scorned, very reminiscent of Wanda Maximoff's Scarlet Witch's scene in WandaVision, when she's protecting her children from Agatha Harkness, the very old and wise and cunning witch. Also, another thing about not messing with mamas is when I think this was in the scene when she was actually about to give birth in space, when she said, "Johnny, kill her," telling Johnny to kill the Silver Surfer, which is almost like a little page out of the handbook of her evil alter ego Malice, who admittedly I don't know much about, but I know that's a version of her in the comics where she's supposed to be not so nice. So it shows her, don't mess with my kid, just like Wanda in a couple of her projects in WandaVision and then Multiverse of Madness. Then, lastly, in terms of my favorite scene for each of the primary characters, believe it or not, my favorite scene with Galactus was when he was standing right next to the Statue of Liberty. Am I the only one who was thinking that he was about to smack it and knock it over? I can't be the only one, but I just thought it was interesting how he just kind of looked at it. It was almost sort of a look of, look at these people building these statues, or almost like a look of disgust in some way. I don't know. So I thought it was interesting. He wasn't going to be destructive about the Statue of Liberty at that moment. So interpret that as you will. I thought that was cool. And then I have a few random thoughts. Now here we are at about the 23-minute mark, maybe slightly shorter, or at least over 20 minutes now. I really liked the interesting changing of the aspect ratio when it showed the Fantastic Four on the Ted Gilbert show, which is something that Matt Shakman did a lot in WandaVision. They changed it up, and depending on whether they were in a 50s era or a 60s era or a 70s era, I thought that was really cool. And a little throwback to that visual cue from WandaVision that Matt Shakman has applied to the Fantastic Four first steps. Let's see. Sorry, I lost my place, folks. I haven't memorized all this. I also like in terms of the depiction of Reed in this movie, what Pedro Pascal does when one of the reporters asks him, as soon as they get back from space, having had their encounter with Galactus, someone asks him, "Are we safe?" And you might think that would be a time for a superhero to kind of fake it until he makes it and says, "Oh yeah, we got it taken care of. It's all good." But it shows he's human in that moment by saying, "I don't know." So I thought that was a nice script switch up from the normal way that a superhero might answer, I suppose, in that kind of opportunity, in that moment. Then when you have, again, sorry, these are all random thoughts now. Couldn't categorize these into any other place. When you have the thousands of people in Mole Man's Subterranea, that kind of adds claustrophobia to the list of feelings associated with the global imminent catastrophe that Galactus is bringing, because you see, as he's taking his giant footsteps on the street of this alternate universe 1960s Manhattan, you can see all the dust falling out of what's for them people in the underground, the ceiling, and it's all coming down. And, it's claustrophobic and scary at the same time. So another thing to show the gravity of the moment. Oh, and something else I saw online as I was taking my notes, so I thought I would contribute to this, is that I like how Johnny tries to get Ben to say, it's clobbering time, the whole time during the movie. Eventually he does, of course. But something that I didn't realize till I saw it on X somewhere, is that apparently Johnny never says flame on in the movie anywhere. So maybe if they do Fantastic Four 2 in the Marvel Universe, they'll kind of switch the roles, and then you'll hear Ben go, what's turning on now? Johnny, he'll say, the flame is turning on. I don't know, just being stupid. All right, so then last couple things here. A few small gripes I have, nothing major. So of course at the end there is, Sue's, we have to talk about Sue's resurrection by way of baby Franklin, who's basically like a human defibrillator. That's what he does to her. There was, of course, the anticipation and the expectation of her revival. But I wish, kind of from a purely special effects perspective, that there had been more than, just a quick, flash in Sue's eyes, that sort of white silvery flash, like, I'm awake. I wish, I don't know, I was kind of looking for some sort of suggestion of power coming from little Franklin's hands into his mother, but it's fine. He did his job. He revived her and ensured she'd be there for the next Avengers movie. So there was that. And then Natasha Lyonne's character, whose name is Rachel Rosman, who I guess is a school teacher or school administrator or both. I mean, her screen time was about that long. And I love Natasha Lyonne. I mean, of course, anybody around my age, I'm in my mid-40s, and I think most of us probably know her from the American Pie series, at least American Pie movies from the late 90s, early 2000s. At least that was my first encounter with her. And then somewhat more recently, I got to see her in a more comedic, but also kind of serious role in Russian Doll. And I thought she was great in that. And I'm sure she's been in some other things. I can't think of what they are right now. And so I just wish they'd given her a little more time. I understand maybe pacing-wise, Matt Shackman had to make some tough decisions, like his decision to cut out John Malkovich entirely from the movie. I guess he'll be in the DVD extras. And then I kind of wish I had seen more of Galactus's backstory. I mean, there's only so much you could do in that, just under 2-hour movie. But, maybe they'll explain that more, assuming that they bring Galactus back for another encounter with the Fantastic Four or other people. And then speaking of Galactus, am I the only one who thinks that his helmet kind of looks like a wingnut? No? I mean, I know that's been his design in the comics for a long time. Doesn't make him any less imposing. I already mentioned the reasons why he would truly be scary if he were here in the real world, but since his helmet looks like a wingnut, I guess that's why he was screwed ultimately by the Fantastic Four when Sue kicked him to the celestial curb, and wherever he went in that particular universe. And then the post-credit scenes, I loved the tease to give us a little hint of what we might see in Avengers Doomsday when Doom himself shows up, although we don't see his face, we just see him from behind, but I did see that was in fact Robert Downey Jr., Robert Doomy Jr., I guess now, who we saw. And that's my spoiler review of Fantastic Four First Steps. I loved it. It definitely has a rewatchability factor in terms of all the comic book movies that have come out this year. I'm probably going to go see it again tomorrow. And I loved it that much. It's great pacing, great characters, great chemistry amongst the characters, and the visuals and the soundtrack. Chef's kiss cinematographically. So well done to everybody involved. Thank you for watching this far, about half an hour into this review. This is probably one of the longest reviews I've ever done. Thank you, especially if you have watched and realized that I don't have any graphics or anything like that. If this gets any traction at all, maybe I'll start doing that in future videos. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of this movie, if you loved it as much as I did and you plan to watch it again. Thanks for watching this review, and have a great day.